And disciple is a unique word. It's a word that's only used in the church context. We have other words out there that mean similar things, like mentor and teach, right? And they have, in the Jewish context, in a formal structure, they have a rabbi, right? But what we're talking about in discipleship is a very intentional way to love someone that shows them the love of Jesus and compels them to want to follow. And I think where we get mixed up oftentimes in church and in ministry and in our Christian walk, we mix up evangelism and discipleship. And oftentimes I've heard it taught that evangelism is what you do before someone says this magic phrase about Jesus in your heart and gets baptized. And then discipleship is what happens after that. But my argument is like, well, the disciples followed Jesus for 3 years. Those first 3 years, was that Jesus evangelizing them or discipling them? Because not one of them said anything about Jesus being the Messiah until Peter did in year 3. And they followed him for 3 years. Right? So for us to share the love of Jesus with people that aren't close to Jesus, and for us to share the love of Jesus with people that are following Jesus, it's the same act of love, and I would argue it is all discipleship. You don't make disciples the way I do. Imagine this. All of us came today. The way I like to make disciples, the way I'm wired to make disciples, is to teach and preach. And if we all showed up today and all, whatever number of us are here, started preaching, how would that go? I wouldn't be here, by the way. That'd just be weird. I'd walk in, thanks for the coffee, I'm out. And so when Paul describes how we collectively come together and make disciples, he uses the metaphor of a body. We are all one body. And our collective purpose is to acknowledge and embrace and love one another in the fact that we're all different. We're all wired differently. We all have different gifts and skills. We all have different fears and phobias. And so we are here to cover one another. We're here to work together so we collectively can make disciples of Jesus as we individually are growing in our faith, are trusting God to overcome our fears so we can individually invest in making disciples. Now, there's a very clear way to look at this. You could look at this generationally, right? And that you could say, okay, I just feel like I need to engage with someone who is a generation older or younger than me so discipleship can happen. So teaching each other and growing in our understanding of what it means to follow the commands of Jesus. Not just teaching people about the theology of Christianity. That's not discipleship. That's called Bible college, right? Discipleship is a relationship with someone where they're seeing you and you're known by them and they're known by you, and they're seeing how you love, how you serve. They're also seeing how you fail and how you recover. Now, thinking about this generationally, it has been my conviction that it is the purpose of every generation to raise up the next generation of the church. Some people don't get on board with that. Some people think that the church exists for them today. They don't even think about the next generation. But when look at what Jesus says in this great command that we read. In verse 18, can you put that back up there? In verse 18 of chapter 28, he makes this statement that he says, I have been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Like, what a weird thing to say. Like, so? Good for you, Jesus. Like, good on you. Lucky. But he lays this foundation of authority. And then in the next verse, 19, this is what he says. He says, therefore, what do you mean therefore? Well, because I have been given all authority, therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Go. That word go in the Greek, and you might have heard this before, I think it's interesting, it's a participle to the word make disciples. So the action is make disciples, right? And the idea of go is as you are going, make disciples. Like as you are in motion, as you are living your life in the context of the world around you, the people that you're in relationship with, your children, your parents, your neighbors, your supervisor, your employees, your teacher, your fellow students, like you're in relationship with people. As you are doing that, the way you love them will show them the love of Jesus. You will be discipling as you are going about your life. So if you are, like me, if you grew up in the church and you had this Christian guilt because you weren't making disciples, you were set free from that, right? There is a way that Paul describes that everyone has a different role to play for you to serve in a church context with other believers to help you be a part of disciple making as a community, and then personally to help you grow and strengthen and be equipped to be a disciple maker personally. Ephesians 4 says that it's the job of the church leadership to equip you to do the work of the ministry. And the work of the ministry, everything that we do as a church is discipleship. Everything. And I'm not saying that everything we do as a church is leadership development. No, I'm saying discipleship is a very encompassing and powerful term. That when we love, we are teaching people what it looks like to obey all that Jesus has commanded. And again, we don't make people disciples. We love people, and the Holy Spirit does the convicting. God does the drawing. Jesus does the inviting. It's this. We get to watch, stand back and watch what Jesus is going to do when we love people. And you'll be surprised if someone has offended you or betrayed you or sinned against you, and you go to them and you say, I forgive you. That's discipleship. When someone in our society is used to being rejected, neglected, or avoided, and you step into the discomfort of their world, and you show them kindness and love and dignity, you're discipling them. You're teaching them what it looks like to obey all that Jesus has commanded.